All right, we're here on case 2022-301750, State of Florida versus Brandon Fox, and we are here for sentencing. State, are you ready to proceed?
Yes, Your Honor.
Mr. Delgado, are you ready to proceed?
Yes, Judge.
All right. State, do you have any witnesses initially?
I do, Your Honor. The state will call Sergeant Tim Ehrencoffer.
My sense is we have a number of folks who are going to testify. Is that correct or not?
Judge, I think that on my side, there's only 2 or 3 people who will speak.
Okay, that's fine. Because otherwise, we would swear everyone in at the same time.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony given in this cause will be true, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes, I do.
All right, so thanks. All right, Mr. Delgado, you may proceed.
Yes, Your Honor. Can you please introduce yourself to the court?
My name is Timothy Ehrencoffer. I'm a sergeant with the Daytona Beach Police Department. I manage and supervise the Advanced Technology and Cyber Unit.
Okay, and what exactly is that?
We handle everything that's digital forensics, online activity, internet crimes against children. Basically, if something goes online or has storage, we're responsible for it.
And how did you become involved in this case?
I became aware of a cyber tip that we received from the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. They're a clearinghouse that receives tips from different service providers like Facebook, Twitter, Kik, Instagram, where somebody would click the button on it to report some type of illegal activity. It would go to NCMEC, the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. They would then do a geolocation to say that it most likely is in this jurisdiction or this jurisdiction. This one became our jurisdiction.
All right. And once you got the tip that it was occurring within the Daytona Beach jurisdiction, what was the next step that you took?
We then sent out subpoenas and legal services, search warrants, subpoenas, and then once we got those back, we realized the address, who may be involved in the case, and we started doing surveillance.
Now, did you ultimately make an arrest in this case?
Yes, I did.
All right, and who did you arrest in this case?
Brandon Fox.
Now, did you have an opportunity to interview Mr. Fox?
Yes, I did.
All right, now, when you interviewed him, did he admit to the child pornography that was later found on his cellular device?
Yes, he did.
Now, talking about those images, when you get a tip from, say, NCMEC, how do you go about verifying that those are actual known images of child pornography?
Every known image of child pornography has been stored, cataloged, and investigated by NCMEC. They keep a running database of all of them based off a hash value. Hash value is going to be the digital fingerprint of the file. It's probably 2,000 times more accurate than the DNA would be. If you were to take that photo, zoom it in as far as you could zoom it in, and then change one pixel, one shade of one color, the entire hash value fingerprint would change. So they store these photos, they run it through this hashing algorithm that says this file is 100% this image. So when they get those images there, they cross-reference that and they'll have a file, in this case, if it's a known victim, if there's an investigator that's worked on a case in another state or another country, and they compile all that information.
Now, when reviewing Mr. Fox's cell phone in this case, did you discover known images of child pornography?
Yes, I did.
And just one moment. Now, I'm approaching you with been marked for identification. States Exhibit A. It's a CD-ROM. Do you recognize this CD?
Yes, I do.
And can you tell the court how you recognize this CD?
This is a DVD that I put some images and videos on and a log file from Kik and then initial the DVD.
And does this truly and accurately depict portions of items found on the defendant's cellular phone?
Yes.
Now, other than pictures, are there any other items on this phone? Or CD, sorry.
There were pictures, there's videos, and there's a text log file.
Let's start with the videos that are on here.
Sure.
How many videos are on this CD?
I believe I put 2 on there.
All right, now, there were others found on the device, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Now, these two videos that the court, I'm going to allow the court to view in a few moments. Can you tell us about the first video? That would be the girl wearing the fox mask.
It is a known image of a video of child porn that's been cataloged by NCMEC that I've seen probably hundreds of times in these type of cases. It depicts a juvenile female, approximately ages of around 7 years old, performing oral sex on an adult male.
All right, and how do we know that the child in this video is approximately 7 years old?
Couple ways. Number one, it's already been identified by NCMEC as an age. Number two, my training experience. Over the course of 12 years of doing this, I've probably seen 2 to 3 million images, and after a while you just start to get it. And then beyond that, 10 or stages of development, looking at the growth, the budding on breasts, the development of the vagina, you kind of see the different stages.
All right, now let's talk about NCMEC. Do they actually investigate these images and videos?
They don't investigate them per se, they compile all the information of the investigators. So when we work a case, once we have child pornography, we would then submit our final stuff to them, and then they would catalog that. And they would cross-reference it, they run facial recognition to see if that image is in their database already. So they don't investigate, but they're a clearinghouse for everybody else's investigations.
All right, and so were these known, these two videos, were these known to NCMEC?
Yes.
All right, and then the second video is a young child with brown hair. How old was the child in that video?
Again, around 7 years old.
And Your Honor, and then there's also images, still images, photographs.
Yes.
All right, can you tell the court about the several still images that you put on there?
There are ones of a juvenile female, prepubescent, probably in the ages of 6 to 7 years old, engaged in sexual acts with an adult. There is a juvenile male, probably also in the same range, around 7 years old, with an adult female performing oral sex on them.
Your Honor, State would ask what's been previously marked for identification as states Exhibit A be entered into evidence.
No, objection.
So admitted.
And permission to publish to the court.
Are you answering the chat log or just the image?
Just the images and video at this point.
Mr. Delgado, you may approach if you want to see what the court is doing.
I think you said you're seeing the chat log, Judge, what do you think, sir? Okay.
And for the record, the first video states publishing begins with 6F9740CA. Second video states publishing begins with 36034AA7. Still images, the first one's 505, 5005. Next one's 5005A. Next one's 5005B. Next one's 5005C. 5005D. 5005. Now, Sergeant Aaron Coffer, how many images or known images were located on Mr. Fox's cellular device?
We charged 31.
And were there more than 31 images actually found on the device itself?
Yes, sir, about 100.
Now, did you also subpoena chat logs and chat services and applications?
Yes, sir.
All right, which applications did you subpoena?
Kick Messenger.
Okay, and why did you choose Kick Messenger?
That's the one that NCMEC reported was engaging in sharing child pornography.
And when you subpoenaed Kick in this case, what did they send you back?
They sent me back a series of logs that showed friend list, images shared back and forth, messages sent, messages received, and users blocked.
Now let's start with user. How do you know that the username that you subpoenaed belonged to Brandon Fox?
The vanity name for it was Ronald McDonald, and the username was XXRiseXX, which he, during the interview, declared was his username.
And so these chat logs, can you explain to the court what you would find or see in a chat log?
It'll have the usernames that were communicating back and forth. There's different ones. There's a one-on-one chat log where he would send a message to a single person and they may reply directly to him. And then there's blogs that were for group messages where you're in a room with up to 49 people sharing messages amongst the whole group.
All right. And the one that's placed on the states, that's been entered into evidence as stage 1, can you explain what type of log that is?
That is the group messages where images were shared back and forth.
And what was the date range for your subpoena ticket?
It was about a 2-month time range.
So safe to say it would be starting February 3rd, 2021 and ending sometime in April of 2021?
That'd be fair to say.
And you're on permission to publish the chat log in States Exhibit A. There's no imagery or anything of that nature. To the court.
Mr. Delgado, you want to present?
We're going to shut up there, yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Now, Sergeant Aaron Coffer, can you tell the court exactly what they're looking at right now?
In one column is going to be the username of who's sending. One's going to be the username of who's receiving. There's going to be a hash value associated with the image that was sent, along with the additional date and time information.
Okay, so each line here, so every time we see a line on this sheet, is that an image being transferred back and forth?
Yes, it is.
All All right, and then for this 2-month time period, can you tell us, just in this group chat alone, how many known images of child pornography were shared in this group chat in 2 months?
It was just over 3,800.
Yeah, 8 grade school. Maybe.
So I just have a question. So I understand your testimony from the defendant's communication. He shared 3,800 images during that 2-month period.
In the group setting that he was in, between everybody in the group, they shared 3,800 back and forth. All of which shows his username as part of that conversation.
Understood. Thank you.
Okay, so he's privy to all of those transactions back and forth.
That is correct.
And you talked a little bit about blocked users. What exactly is a blocked user?
Just like any other social media platform, if you have somebody on that platform that is annoying you, sending content you don't agree with, you have the ability to block them so you don't have to see their stuff anymore.
And was there any blocked users associated with the defendant's account?
No, the blocked log was empty.
And I don't think I asked you, the still images though, were those identified as well as from Nick as being child pornography?
Yes.
No further questions, Your Honor.
Thoughts?
Good morning, Sergeant.
Good morning.
Obviously, you and Mr. Fox overlapped in your tenure at the police department.
That is correct.
You were never in like a supervisory capacity over him or anything like that, were you?
No, sir.
And his exposure to you would have been limited to maybe initial training during phase 1 or something like that?
Phase 1, possibly on call-outs for CID.
So your interview with him, was that like the first time you had any significant interaction with him?
Yes, sir.
And my understanding was that Mr. Fox was actually arrested at the police department during his shift.
That is correct.
He was brought into, I think, were you privy to the circumstances of his arrest, or were you just brought in after?
Be more specific.
Or were you there when he was actually like in the chief's office and arrested, or did they just bring you in later?
I believe it was in the briefing room downstairs on the first floor, not the chief's office, and I was not there. I was at the county dispatch center getting a warrant entered.
Okay. So when you met with him, he would have been in like an interrogation room?
That is correct.
Okay. And he was cooperative with you as far as admitting to he gave you the passwords and login for his devices, right?
Yes, sir.
He acknowledged his wrongdoing to you essentially, correct?
Yes, sir.
And I just want to clarify make sure I understand the group. I've never used Kick, but I've been, like on chat boards or something like that. And you're saying he was a member of a group, and that group collectively shared that 3,800 images between the entire group.
Correct.
Right? So he himself not transmit that specific number.
Not that specific number.
Okay. And if you're a member, I'm sure you know how Kick works. If you're a member of that group and someone else posts 1,000 images or 2,000 images, you're going to receive those images in your, for lack of a better word, like inbox, so to speak, right?
Correct.
Okay. And then it would be up to you to then either delete it or block it or respond however you wanted to respond at that point.
That is correct.
Okay. Now, when you talked with Mr. Fox, did he express that his mental state was not good at the time that you interviewed him?
I asked him specifically about his mental state, and he did say that, yes.
And that his arrest was kind of capping off a tough time for the police department. There have been several deaths of officers, either in line of duty or by suicide, right?
Unfortunately, yes, sir.
And he shared with you that he was friends with the Officer Rayner and the other officer who committed suicide. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And did he seem genuine in his presentation to you?
Yes, sir.
Was he placed in suicide watch when he got to the jail, to your knowledge?
I recommended it. I don't know what the jail did, but I did shoot a phone call over there saying that they probably should.
And that was based on your concern for him?
Yes, sir.
Okay. I don't have any further questions. Thank you, sir.
Any regret?
No, Your Honor.
You may step down.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Next witness,
No further witnesses for the state, Your Honor.
Mr. Dunbar.
Judge, what I did was I filed some letters of support, and what I just wanted to do is make sure that none of those people had anything they wanted to add after hearing the state's presentation. If I could just kind of essentially call their names and ask if there's anything else they want to add, and then I just intend to call Alicia there and then my client.
All right.
So, Ms. Twyla Ham, who's Brandon Fox's mother, she gave a letter of support. Ms. Ham, are you present?
Yes.
Is there anything you want to say to the court other than what's in your letter?
No.
David Fox is Brandon's father. Mr. Fox, are you present? Yes. Is there anything you want to tell the court other than what's in your letter? No. Travis Barrett, present?
No.
Okay, not present. Mr. Ham, are you present?
Yes.
Is there anything, your Brandon's stepfather, is there anything you want to say in addition to what?
Oh, not that, Mr. Ham.
Brad Ham's not here?
No, Mr.
Mr. Means, present?
No, Mr.
Connor Ham, not here? Okay, Connor, you're Connor Ham. Is there anything you want to add, your stepbrother, is there anything you want to add in addition to what's in your letter?
No.
Mr. Dawn Springman here?
No.
Acknowledged. Is there anyone else in the audience who wants to address the court that I haven't called on? Your Honor, based on that, I would just like to rely on what the family's filed, and then I'd like to call Ms. Alicia Barrett.
All right, you may. Ms. Barrett, if you come up to the podium to be sworn.
Just always swear to open the testimony you give is possible. True and all those that
You may proceed.
Thank you. Ma'am, can you state your name for us, please?
Alicia Barrett.
Ms. Barrett, what do you do for work?
I am a business owner.
Okay. And you're Brandon Fox's sister.
Yes.
I know that you wrote the court a lengthy letter. Is there anything else? So I guess, what would you like the court to know about Brandon as far as his life goals, what he always wanted to do, his career? Can you tell the court a little bit about that?
Yeah, so from the time Brandon was little, he was always wanting to be in public service. He definitely, he changed his mind like normal kids, but it started with the military and then it went into he wanted to be a firefighter. He started there in Pennsylvania. He volunteered and then he couldn't stand to be away from home, so he came home pretty quickly and went into fire academy, and then he decided that he wanted to keep going. So he went into EMT school, and then shortly after, police academy, graduated top of his class, and then proceeded to be hired by Daytona Beach.
Now, your husband was in law enforcement as well, is that correct?
Yes.
All right. And your husband and your brother became close friends. Can you tell the court a little bit about that?
Yeah, so my husband and I have been together for almost 10 years, which would put Brandon at about 13. My husband was a sniper in the United States Army, and once he had gotten out in 2015, he moved here to be with me as I was already settled. And him and Brandon became best friends. He then kind of had a hard time finding his footing after being in the military, so he decided to follow in his father's footsteps. His dad is a 33-year-old law enforcement veteran. And he went into the police academy and then shortly after got hired with Daytona. And then, him and Brandon linked up and did Daytona together.
Did Brandon seem happy he was a police officer?
He loved his job.
And were his friends mostly in law enforcement?
Yes.
I know there was a period of time in which Brandon lost, I think, 3 friends kind of in rapid succession. Can you tell the court a little bit about that and how that impacted your brother?
Yeah, so Christmas Day of, I believe, 2020, we got a phone call that an officer from the shores had committed suicide. That was the most somber Christmas I've ever had. Brandon took it really, really hard. And from that point until even now, I mean, on Christmas Day, he goes to visit him. A little while later, Jason Rayner was shot. I'm sorry. Jason Rayner was shot in the line of duty. Brandon found out about it while he was in Palm Coast, and he made it to the hospital before the ambulance even did.
Your brother and Jason Rayner were very close friends?
Yeah. Brandon stayed at the hospital with Jason for every day, through the ups and downs. You know, we thought he was going to pull through, and then it would get worse, and then he was doing better, and then it would get worse. And then he obviously succumbed to his injuries.
And it was a lengthy period of time.
Yeah, it was over 50 days.
And your brother was with him the whole time?
Yes, other than when they needed boots on ground at the department, Brandon would have to leave him, but as soon as he got off, he went.
Did you notice a change in your brother's behavior as far as how he was handling the stress or handling the situation when Rayner was in the hospital?
When he was in the hospital, he started to drink a lot. He was a little more standoffish. He was short-fused. I think everyone was really scared. So, and then once that happened, once he passed, then that was hard in itself.
But that wasn't the end of it for Brandon, right? Because he lost another friend in October?
Yeah. Right after Jason had passed away, which was August 17th, on October 1st, we got a phone call that Patrick Erlinson, who was Jason's own partner, and one of Brandon's absolute best friends, had committed suicide in the Walmart parking lot in Daytona.
I think it goes without saying that obviously that was another massive blow to your brother, right?
Yes.
And would you characterize these two men as some of his best friends that passed away?
Yes, there was, in the group, there was, including Brandon, there was 5 of them. Patrick, Jason, John Russo, my husband Travis Barrett, and Brandon, and they did everything together.
You said that you were concerned. Did Brandon, to your knowledge, try to get any help during this time?
Yes, so once Jason was shot, and between the time that he was shot and he passed away, Brandon had
I'm sorry, Ms. Barrett, I'm sorry.
No, you're okay. Brandon had contacted, I believe it's called EAP, through the police department, and tried to get some kind of therapy. I'm extremely nosy, so I had gone to my mom's one day, and Brandon was in his room, so I wanted to know who he was talking to. So I went and stood by the door, and it was EAP, and he had been trying to get in, and he was getting quite frustrated with them because he told them, I've been trying, I've been calling, and you guys don't have any openings. Like, how am I supposed to talk to somebody? But once this happened, he came out and he explained to us that he wasn't able to get in, so we told him, just keep trying, like, we'll figure it out. And then once Patrick passed away. He tried again and again and again. And I don't know if it was just the abundance of officers that were affected or if they just didn't care enough to get him in, but he still was unable to obtain help through the department.
How did Brandon's, his behavior and his affectivity change as the time went on?
He just drank a lot. He was super standoffish.
Are you aware of a suicide attempt on your brother's part?
Yes.
So during this, at some point during all of this, he tried to take his own life?
Yes.
Then obviously, once your brother was arrested, there was a whole new set of things to deal with from the media and from everyone. What has changed as far as your brother's outlook since this arrest? What if anything has caused him to kind of turn around and regroup, in your opinion?
Brandon, once he was let go from the police department, we were able to obtain him therapy. He had been going to see a therapist. At the beginning, it was like 1 to 2 times a week, sometimes even more. She wanted to get Brandon in because she is familiar with law enforcement. Her husband's in law enforcement, and so she kind of moved her schedule around and got him in. He has been carrying 2 full-time jobs to make ends meet because obviously he's very limited to what he can do. But more importantly, he has been the absolute backbone of this family through this entire process. Clearly, we don't hold ourselves together that great, but Brandon has been the one that's been encouraging us to keep fighting and keep pushing on and get through this.
And you and Brandon are very close, right?
We're very close.
And obviously, you have a close family. Your husband is one of his best friends. Do you have any children?
I have 4,
How old are your children?
14, 13, 11, and 5.
Did you ever have any concern when you heard about these charges that Brandon shouldn't be around your children or be anything but a great uncle?
Not at all.
Do you think that Brandon is someone who is a danger to the community or a threat to children?
No.
How do you reconcile the horrific charges and the images you heard described with the brother that you know and love? How do we kind of connect those 2 people?
Can you elaborate? What do you mean?
Well, he's accused of something pretty horrific, and obviously you're saying that doesn't represent him. Do you think that it's a product of his depression, his anxiety? How do we kind of reconcile how we end up here today? If you have any thoughts on that?
I think that if these charges and everything that the state has is accurate, I will say that do I think it was intentional? Absolutely not. Do I think Brandon seeked these images? Absolutely not. I do not believe that, I think it was a wrong place, wrong time. I think it was destructive. I don't think Brandon had the awareness of what he was doing when this happened. I know my brother better than anyone. And I am here to tell you that there is no way at all, in any way, shape, or form, that man is a threat to anybody. As far as the images go, I feel that this was a grave mistake. I think that Brandon is paying for this regardless for the rest of his life no matter what comes out of this today. And this is something that he has to live with, along with not just Brandon, but our family too.
Thank you, Ms. Barrett. I don't have any more questions. I will tell you what it is.
Just briefly. Now, Ms. Barrett, most of us can understand with what you and your family, and specifically the defendant's been through. He could turn to drugs, turn to alcohol, he could be here for a DUI, battery, things of that nature. But you understand there's a huge leap between, coping using substances or alcohol and child pornography. Would you agree?
Yeah.
All right? And those are images he intentionally sought out. So that's not things that landed in his lap. These were things that he went out and looked for. Do you understand that?
Can I answer yes or no?
No, you can answer however you want.
Okay. As far as seeking them out, can you elaborate on how he went physically to seek out child pornography?
On his phone, utilizing the internet, he would go join chat groups and ask to trade and obtain images of child pornography back and forth with other users.
So he asked to see child pornography.
Yes.
Okay.
You understand that that's what was going on. I mean, you heard just in a 2-month period, he's in a group chat. So like if you had a group chat with your girlfriends and friends, there's 3,808 images of known child pornography shared amongst this. And at one point in time in those 2 months, did he ever turn his head? Did he ever block anyone? Did he ever delete the app or anything of that nature? You understand?
Sure.
Okay. Can you explain how you've known your brother all your life, how he goes from dealing with this tragedy to child pornography?
Do we know if he was on this app every day? Do we know that he viewed all 3,800 images that were shared? And of those, I would ask you, how many did he physically see or reshare?
Okay, I can show on that phone, there's at least 100. Those videos include 7-year-old girls being sexually abused by grown men.
Mm-hmm.
You don't think there's an issue with that?
I'm not saying there's not an issue with that. I'm not denying that, and I'm not denying why we're here. I don't deny the charges. What I'm telling you is that I know Brandon, again, better than anybody. And I can tell you 100% without a doubt that if something were to happen to me, I would have no problem leaving my children in the care of Brandon.
Nothing further, Your Honor.
Thank you.
No,
Can I, do you want me to read my letter?
no, the judge has the letter.
I have already reviewed all of the letters that have been filed in the court file.
Please watch your step.
This is the address of the judge.
One more, Your Honor. Your Honor, at this time I would call Mr. Brandon Fox.
All right, Mr. Fox, come on up to the podium and be sworn in. We'll get to the witness.
You solemnly swear to uphold the testimony given in this mouth, the truth, and the truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
I do.
Sworn. Your Honor, my intention was just to ask Mr. Fox to put his name on the record, and he's prepared to statement at this time. All right. Sir, can you state your name for us, please?
Brandon Fox.
Mr. Fox, I know you prepared a statement for the court. Could you go ahead and read the statement for the court?
Yes. Your Honor, I'd like to start by sincerely apologizing for being here in this position. Being here means that I have let down the trust of not only the people I swore to protect, the citizens, my colleagues, the police department, my family is here today, my friends, and myself. I have no excuse for my actions, and I wish that I could stand before you and give you a valid reason. that I'm here and what caused my terrible decisions, but I can't. My sister touched on my friends, more importantly the ones that I feel have let down today, but back to back. Both of those friends losing them, it's horrible, but I can't imagine if they were in this position, sitting in these stands, staring at me right now, what they would think of me. But knowing that, I also know that their loss, along with other issues that I've been dealing with, just unhinged me. It caused an issue that has put me here. Officer Rayner was to be lost recently. He was murdered in the line of duty. And the same night he called me and asked me to come work with him. Denied it because I was staying in Palm Coast. And shortly after that, I received a phone call from one of our friends that he had been shot and then I needed to get to the hospital. So I went 90 miles an hour down to 95 the entire way there, following an FHP officer, beating the ambulance to the hospital. And from there, I sat with him every single day. We painted Jason's toenails. We'd sit there and listen to metal music with him. I wanted to stay as close as I could to my best friend because despite all the positivity, I was scared to lose him. And as you know, over 50 days later, Jason succumbed to his injuries. And then directly after that, Officer Erlinson committed suicide. Me, Officer Erlinson, my brother-in-law, and another officer, John Russo, were in the hospital every day with Patrick or with Jason. We did everything. We stayed together. We did not leave each other's side for that entire time. We all gained such a stronger bond than we had already had. After Officer Erlinson took his life, I had received multiple phone calls and I had just gotten off work. So I was still sleeping and I missed them. I was awoken by two of my good friends basically breaking into my home to share with me the news that Patrick had committed suicide in a Walmart parking lot, the next city over, so that we wouldn't have to find him. At this point, I was already lost. 2 years prior, I had lost Officer Barros from the Shores, who I had went through fire and EMT together with, who had given me that final push to just go to police academy and follow the dreams that I had had since I was younger. And then the two officers that I've not only respected with everything I had and looked up to, but loved like brothers, were gone. And I felt like I had nothing. And while dealing with that, my stepfather, the man that had raised me, was diagnosed with a very serious form of prostate and colon cancer, and we didn't know if he was going to make that either. All of these items were just a quick, terrible shock. Starting with Darius, it was the first of several tremendously unsettling losses and things taken that I would have to endure that I never thought that my life would come to. I've never learned how to grieve or process loss and death. Instead, I turned things that I thought would have been manly or macho, like drinking, heavily, throwing myself into work, and just putting emotions in a box and thinking that if I don't have to deal with them, they won't come back. I realize now, looking back, that I became reckless and self-destructive after death or disaster, and that I succeeded in bringing ruin and self-destruction upon myself. Like many others in my procession, I didn't completely understand the adverse and negative effects of all the traumatic incidents and how they had stacked on me. I believe that I can muscle through it all, and that these problems are just real. And I can deal with them on my own. Like I said, put them in a box. Obviously, me sitting here before all of you today is a great example as to why that is not true. It does not work. Untreated trauma, as well as other mental health issues that I wasn't privy to that I had and have been pushing off, led to a blatant disregard for my own life and safety, led to isolation from those who care about me, complete numbness just from everything. Just trying to ignore the pain and damage and not recognizing the numbness for what it was. I pushed the limits of everything, trying to feel anything at all. I was watching horrific and shocking videos, pictures of just gore, violence, rude humor, and just filth, like the items that I encountered. At the time, I didn't think about the harm that went into creating the video, or the fact that these children are being victimized to create these disgusting items. I didn't think about how these things have ruined people's lives and continue to this day to ruin people's lives. It was self-destructive, and it was a total disconnect. Because in real life, I would have instantly arrested anyone for even thinking of harming a child. But inside, I was falling, and there was no bottom. I didn't understand how low it can get until I had finally hit that bottom. One night after work, I had driven home very shortly after the incidents that had unfolded with my friend. I sat in the driveway of my house until about 4 o'clock in the morning, while my mother, my stepfather, my nieces and nephews slept inside the house. I was staring up at the roof of my patrol car looking at the picture that I had of Officer Jason Rayner and Officer Patrick Erlinson. I unholstered my duty weapon and racked my side. At that point, while staring up at the pictures, I put my duty weapon inside my mouth and pulled the trigger. Looking down and realizing that I was still alive, I had noticed that because I had only half racked the firearm, my gun had caused double feed and had jammed the slide cap open, not causing the round to properly be charged and discharged out of the firearm. That incident had saved my life, and I'm thankful to God and my friends that they knew that it was not my time to leave. I sat in my police cruiser for roughly 3 hours after tossing my into the passenger seat crying, understanding that at this point I needed help, and there was no hiding it, there was no muscling through it. I realized what I had almost done to my family, knowing that they could have walked outside in the morning and to see me sitting there, knowing what I had done, and I know that I could have caused them to struggle and caused trauma for them that I don't wish upon anyone in this world. And that I could not only never see my parents and my sister and my family here today, but I could have never went out and played football with my nephews again. I could have never sat there and made jokes and played video games and tried to beat me in Call of Duty, and that I could have left them and left everyone without closure, like Patrick had done to all of us. From that moment on, I knew that I needed to kickstart and get my life back in order for my family. I couldn't afford therapy, and I was using the employee assistance program through the police department, attempting to get the help that I needed. And I was given the runaround generally and told me to call back to continue. continue trying to get. I spoke to other people in the department looking for therapists or looking for a way that I could get help for a price that I could afford. That way I didn't have to continue to go through EAP, but I was advised to continue trying the EAP. I didn't know how to advocate for myself, but at the same time, I didn't want to go through the department telling too many people of my situation. I was ashamed of the person that I had become and the person that I knew I was turning into. I was scared of not only losing the job that I had waited my whole life for, but being outed as weak and as a failure, because that is all I've grown up feeling. I didn't push hard enough for myself, and when I was unable to get to the help that I needed, I began drinking, isolating, and just completely shutting off. Your Honor, I am disgusted by the actions that I have taken, and I will forever have to live with that torture in my soul. And inside being what it is, and having the ability to think more rationally and clearly now, I know that I should have handled these items differently and tried to be a part of the solution rather than being a part of the